Next slide. We're just going to go over some norms. So please stay muted and remain muted unless you are asked to unmute. The second one you don't actually need to do anymore because we will be spotlighting people. But one thing we would love everybody to do, if you could please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, pronouns, partner organization, and land acknowledgement. There's this helpful link right here that you can use in case you aren't sure. Also, please use the chat throughout tonight's event, ask questions, say when you like something, use your reactions. We want to engage everybody as much as we can. Also, don't multitask. Please be mentally present with this. We're really excited for today's show and hope that everybody will engage with us. And lastly, be positive, be kind, be patient, and have a lot of fun. So let's go to program overview and then we'll get started. All right, so first we're going to have one of our Green New Deal Virginia champions speaking, Delegate Elizabeth Guzman. From there, we will quickly go over what the Green New Deal Virginia is and why it's important. After that, our working groups will introduce themselves, go over their priorities and how they are working on their priorities and the work that they are doing. We will have a little break in between that with a short video from activists in Charles City County telling their stories from the front line. And we will also have a wonderful video from Delegate Sam Razul. After that, we will finish up with our wonderful working groups. And then Delegate Joshua Cole is going to deliver the closing remarks and uplift a great call to action that we put together for you all this evening. And if we have the time, we will go through some questions and answers. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and let us know who your question is for so that we can hopefully address these at the end. And with that, I'm really excited to introduce Delegate Guzman. Welcome, everybody.
Hello, good evening. Green New Deal, Virginia. I am Delegate Elizabeth Guzman, and I proudly represent the 31st District. And I'm here tonight because our planet faces its most deadly crisis, climate change. But looking at who's here tonight gives me energy. I know that you are all committed to see this happen. And I know that when we work together, we can make change here in the Commonwealth. And I still remember in 2019, when Delegate Razul called me to ask if I wanted to embark on this journey with him. And look where we are today, how much progress we have made. And I'm so proud of all of you, and I know you should be proud of yourselves as well. So for me, this fight is personal, and I don't want to look at my children and my grandchildren 10 or 15 years from now and tell them, I wish I did more to save the planet when I had the chance to do it. I am motivated by our climate crisis because I want to ensure that all of Virginia's children can one day enjoy our Commonwealth just as we do today. And because of this fact, I'm committed to do all I can to pass a Green New Deal here in Virginia during the upcoming 2022 legislative session. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Changes report this year and indicated that the 2020s will be warmer than the last decade. It also indicated that the 2030s will be warmer than the 2020s and the 2040s even worse. So the report removed all doubts that we are going to hit the 1.5 Celsius degree change in global temperature. We're going to hit it no matter what. But if we actually swiftly, we can avoid seeing that number go even higher. What we do now will determine how livable our planet will be in the 2050s. And I want to do my part. And I know that everyone on this call feels the same way. And I support the Green New Deal because it's the only plan that calls for a complete moratorium on the burning of fossil fuels. We need more than carbon caps and brief fossil fuel moratoriums. We need to stop burning oil and fracking for natural gas altogether. And as a union sister, I'm here to ensure that we build bridges between saving the environment and creating new jobs. It is possible. Other countries have done it. Virginia has been the first for many things over the last 2 years, and we can be the first to enact these policies as well. So please be hopeful, be optimistic. I serve as the Southern Region Chair of the National Hispanic Caucus of State Legislators, and I was able to pass this resolution with unanimous bipartisan support. So it can be done. The Green New Deal is the only plan that takes our responsibility for the planet seriously and actually provides a future for our children, our grandchildren. We need to make a massive investment in renewable energy that create thousands of high-paying union jobs. And that's just what the Green New Deal will do. So thank you for having me tonight. I wish we can be there in person on this meeting, so I will send you a virtual hug. Let's work together and let's get it done this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that beautiful message, Delegate Guzman. It's always inspiring to hear from you, and we're always inspired by your commitment to climate justice. Hi, everybody. My name is Kines Gabre, and I am the organizing coordinator for Virginia Interfaith Power and Light, and we are part of the Green New Deal Coalition. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about our coalition and how we're committed to environmental justice and social equity. So Green New Deal Virginia Coalition proposes to create thousands of good jobs while addressing climate emergency and restoring Virginia's environment. Our collective efforts will redress two of the biggest crises we face today: climate change and social inequity. As part of a just transition, we are committed to putting justice at the forefront of our efforts, and our objectives for a new Green New Deal Virginia include a just and equitable 100% renewable plan that leaves no workers or communities behind, clean air, water, and land for all Virginians, large investments and job training programs in renewables, building an energy efficient smart grid, residential and commercial energy efficiency, as well as investments in local scale agriculture in communities across Virginia. And we also prioritize equitable and affordable and clean housing and transportation systems for all. Green New Deal Virginia has a vision to readjust and redirect our economic governance towards a green and just economy. We envision a democratic approach to the climate crisis based on expansive public and community investments to accelerate and democratize a green transition, as well as decarbonize Virginia economies while eliminating social inequities. To achieve this vision, we prioritize and center environmental justice and impacted communities, as well as communities that have been left at the margin of our extractive fuel-based economy. Green New Deal Virginia is intentional about existing economic disparities and presents opportunities and envisioned equity that will aid our local transition from a fossil fuel-based energy system to renewable energy sources with the goal of decreasing environmental degradation and impacted communities significantly. In doing so, we'll also provide the framework for the needed capital to seed economic growth and sustain living wage incomes for many of our communities' most vulnerable populations. Green New Deal Virginia strives to create a holistic framework on political economic change in the era of energy transition that centers environmental justice to achieve equity. Thank you all for joining us today as we share our 2022 legislative priorities and articulate inspiring visions of a socially and ecologically just Virginia. Thank you.
Hi all, I'm Stacy Lovelace, and I am the chair of the Defossilization, Energy Efficiency, and Renewables Working Group. And I'll give our first overview here. Our group, better known as the DEAR Group, was tasked with policy for a just and ambitious energy transition, because unfortunately, Virginia does not have current legislation that addresses that need, and to experience the greatest benefits of a transition like jobs and labor income, we need to be much more ambitious in our renewable energy goals and our energy efficiency goals and our transition to clean energy. And we also need to make sure that no community is left behind during this transition. So we need a plan that protects workers so that Virginians have access to sustainable, good paying union jobs, that protects ratepayers, and that centers environmental justice communities as well that have been traditionally exploited by industry. And ultimately, Virginia's current energy goals don't align with what is needed to fend off the climate crisis as well. On the right side of the screen there, you can see for Virginia on that scary red section on the right for the top graphic, that's how much higher our temperatures have gotten or strayed from the average annual temperature. And on the bottom graphic, you can see where it's getting darker blue in these past few decades, how much more precipitation we're getting as well in Virginia. So Virginia is already feeling the effects of the climate crisis, and we need to, have a much more ambitious plan to mitigate that. Next slide, please. Virginia also, despite this need to address climate change and the intersecting issues of economic and social justice, Virginia continues to build out fossil fuels. Over here on the right, you can see the Mountain Valley Pipeline construction that continues today, despite no need. It's awful impacts on communities, hundreds of violations. And ultimately, we can't keep building fossil fuels if we're going to address the climate crisis and protect our communities. So, and if we want to fully tap into the benefits of a renewable energy economy, we can't continue to build these projects that will increase our dependence on fossil fuels for decades. And Virginia's long history of environmental injustice is hand in hand with fossil fuel infrastructure. These fossil fuel projects are no longer needed. We've had a nearly flat energy load demand in Virginia for years. And these projects, all they'll do is serve a corporate few while exacerbating the climate crisis. And ultimately, we still don't have any laws that will prevent these projects from harming our communities and continuing to harm our environment and climate. Next slide, please. And so our top priorities to address these problems, the first is the new Virginia Economy Act. That'll be a just transition bill that will mandate Virginia's electricity come from truly clean renewable energy by 2035. It will stop the build out of new fossil fuel and dirty energy projects. It will also strengthen Virginia's energy efficiency goals to tap into how energy efficiency can be used to address the climate crisis and also create jobs. It calls for the development of a climate action plan that will address all aspects of climate change, like agriculture, transportation, housing, things like that. And that will have all stakeholders at the table, like impacted communities, unions, to be a part of that development. And then it ultimately will provide protections for workers that are transitioning from the fossil fuel industry, as well as vulnerable communities and workers in the new clean energy jobs as well. Will provide protections for them. And also, like last year, we hope to have a separate fossil fuel moratorium bill as well that will stop the issuance of permits for new or expanding fossil fuel projects, while also including those protections for transitioning workers and impacted communities. So both will have the fossil fuel moratorium to stop the build out of fossil fuel infrastructure here in Virginia. And that is our top priorities for this coming session. Now we are going to hear a couple videos from some folks in Charles City County, a frontline community there. And then after that, we'll hear a video from Delegate Lizzul.
Who is grandchildren. As a member of Concerned Citizens of Charles City County and a Charles City County resident who is facing a proposed project that will bring the largest merchant fossil fuel power plant to Virginia and a massive pipeline that will rip through 5 Virginia counties. I ask that you stop destroying rural Virginia communities by stopping fossil fuel projects. No more sacrifice zones. Virginians deserve better. We are fighting for a better tomorrow.
As we've all heard from countless advertisements, media production, our government is trying to promote 100% clean energy in and across America. For communities like the place that I'm from, Charles City County, having a fossil fuel company come into our community and then be left and abandoned because it's no longer supporting the agenda of clean energy production would mean that we would then be responsible for having this type of development in our area. There aren't any funds to deal with this, to deal with the stranded asset or abate the property to have it reused. And many times there is no mitigation clause that allows the community to have this area cleaned up and disposed of properly so that it can be used again. The other reason is because the people who live in these areas don't have the ability to be able to prove that these types of developments cause health issues. They don't have the ability to be able to support and take care of themselves after they have this unknown illness that pops up. These areas cannot afford and cannot fight back from these large developments. And right now, with the amount of the impact that we're having with the fossil fuel industry on climate change, it doesn't make sense to bring these type of developments into communities that lack infrastructure, that lack emergency services, and lack hospital care, so that the people that are affected by this have the appropriate remedies to deal with this. So it'll affect everyone because they're going to have to get funding and they're going to have to pull from resources that they don't have, which ultimately will fall on everyone. So I don't support fossil fuels within these low minority communities because also they should not be targeted because of their social class. And that's another issue that we're fighting with the social and climate injustices that we're finding with minority Black community, rural Black communities that are constantly being impacted by putting in large developments with fossil fuel infrastructure. So I do not support having them in those areas, and I hope that our government will continue to align with producing clean energy across the nation so that these small minority Black rural communities are not impacted and that we can continue to work to stop climate change instead of attributing to it. Thanks.
What is up, Green New Deal Coalition? It is Sam Rasool here. I hope you are doing well. So proud of all of the wonderful work that the Green New Deal Coalition is doing and has been doing. Sometimes it can be a tough road to hoe, but look at where we were just a few years ago. We weren't having any of these conversations. Now they are in the middle of policy debates time and time again. We've got legislators that are pushing these issues and elevating intersectional justice right to the forefront. And to me, this is what it has been. We realize that there cannot be a just coalition without building it intersectionally. We've got to have social, economic, racial, and environmental justice front and center. And that's why we are bringing forward this New Virginia Economy Act to ensure that we do everything that we can to uplift the lives of so many Virginians who need us the most. This is important work and at an important time. All across the country, people are watching what Virginia is doing this year to ensure that we can lead the way in doing what's best for Virginia. I know that these elections are tough and it's grueling, but look, for me, that is the struggle. This is what gives me the fire to keep going, because what we know is that justice is not a destination. It is in fact a journey. And I am so fortunate to be able to be on this journey with so many of you. So thank you so much for all that you are doing to uplift the lives of so many and to ensure that when we have these conversations, we're doing them in a just way. Can't wait to see what's around the corner. Once we get past the November elections, we've got a whole slew of legislation that we want to make sure is front and center. Thanks again.
Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Miller, and I chair the Democratic Governance Working Group. Climate justice is also about voting rights and democracy reform. If we don't have the ability to vote, we don't have the ability to bring in the changes legislatively that are going to be necessary to accomplish our climate goals. For a just climate future, we must ensure that all the systems that are in place prioritize the needs of the voters, not the politicians or the corporations or wealthy individuals that buy them. And right now in Virginia, we need to work very hard on all those things. There are only 5 states that have very, very limited campaign finance laws. Virginia is one of 2 states that places no limits on how much money individuals or corporations can give to elected officials. Next slide. Our top priorities are voting rights, restoration of rights. We must pass the constitutional amendment the second time. And then in 2023, it will go out to the citizens of Virginia for ratification. This ugly stain has been in our Constitution since 1902. We're also going to be working on voter registration for 16-year-olds. We need to fix the constitutional amendment that we did on redistricting to incorporate anti-gerrymandering language and removing legislators from the redistricting process. We also, as I referenced before, must limit the amount of money that individuals can contribute to elected officials and prohibit public service corporations, can anyone say Dominion Energy, from making contributions to candidates. Over the past 10 years, Dominion Energy has invested $56 million in the Virginia General Assembly. They have spent lavishly on both Democrats and Republicans. This must stop. We all witnessed on January 6th that it is very important that we directly elect the President of the United States. So we wish to literally sidestep and bypass the Electoral College. And finally, oversight of democratically owned cooperative institutions. Virginia has 13 rural electric cooperatives, the second largest one in Rappahannock Electric Cooperative. We must have these institutions have fair elections so that member owners who care about climate and citizens and ensuring a clean energy, just transition and future for our children and grandchildren are elected, and we don't have board members continually re-electing themselves. Credit unions, many people may not know and understand, are also cooperatives, which means we own them. Credit unions are not baby banks. They are, in fact, democratically controlled institutions, and we must have oversight into the way they do business. One of the biggest credit unions in Virginia, Virginia Credit Union, is sitting on $100 million in excess assets. Basically, it's time for us to run it. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. This is Matt Royer for the Sustainable Jobs Working Group. Right now, obviously, what we're trying to accomplish here is making sure that we have plenty of renewable energy jobs, but not just jobs in general, but good paying jobs with a lot of great benefits and making sure that those workers are getting the representation that they deserve. So the first of our priorities is going to be repealing right to work. The right to work laws here in Virginia have really made it near impossible for workers to be able to bargain and making sure that they're getting paid what they deserve. And that so much so that they are actually getting paid significantly less than non-right to work states are. So that's going to be super important for us to be putting that through. So we're also needing to ensure a just transition between old energy jobs and future sustainable energy jobs. We had begun this process of training workers to transition over to the renewable energy sector, but during the Trump administration, they actually stopped that from happening since he decided to try to prop up the oil and coal industries. But there is a way that we can create a sustainable career path for these workers by creating these renewable energy jobs to be good paying union jobs. So the first step, like I said, is repealing right to work. We have been slowly making our way to being a higher ranked on, rather than being dead last for workers' rights here in Virginia and America. And we are going to be also wanting to invest in sustainable job growth. We need to invest in our workers' ability to organize and to bargain instead of workers having to rely on their own ability to negotiate and give more time to workers to focus on the project itself. So that is what we're trying to do to give those people their ability to unionize. On top of that is project labor agreements, community benefits surrounding contracted development in zoning ordinances. So what a project labor agreement would mean would be that all work would have to come from a union or union labor. So we would be making sure that all of those folks that are making the projects, putting the wind turbines up, putting the solar panels down, all of those folks would be from union jobs. So we're making sure that those workers are getting the representation that they deserve. As I said, just transition for fossil fuel workers. Obviously, as we are weaning off of fossil fuel as a main source of energy, we need to be making sure that we are also taking care of the people whose jobs they're being lost. That would mean that either if you're close to the end of your career, near pension, we're giving you enough money to be able to get to your pension, or we're giving you enough money so that you can find other work using your trades that you already have, or if people are early on in their careers, finding a way for them to get the right necessary training to get to the point where they need to keep making sure that they can have a sustainable career path ahead. And of course, that also means promoting union apprenticeships for green energy, like I said, for the PLAs, as well as prevailing wages to make sure that people are getting paid what they're worth, and that the industry and the labor within the industry can set those wages and making sure that people are getting the money that they deserve. So with that, obviously, none of that can be done unless we repeal our right to work laws here in Virginia. So we'll be continuing to push that hard, and hopefully with new leadership, we will be able to get that passed through.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Mosley. I co-chair the Finance Committee with Mark Armstrong.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thanks, Frank. I'll hand it back to you and just to talk about equity, just as I talk about a couple of things. Folks, financing and banking scare a lot of people, but I just want to give one example which should really stand out in everybody's mind. The state of North Dakota already has a public bank. They have about $5 billion in loans that they generate on average. And what that means is that it's about $6,000 per capita. So that $6,000 or that $5 billion is not carried on the balance sheet of the state. It's generated as loans on the balance sheet of the Public Bank of North Dakota. And so that means that they can pay for a lot of things without taxes and without borrowing. They simply generate the money through their bank by writing it into their balance sheet. And so that's what we could do here in Virginia. If we were to have the equivalent size bank, and by the way, that's a small bank, but we would have $50 billion of credit, of loans that could be used to pay for solar, to pay for a number of things that is eventually paid back by people. But the point is that there's a tremendous capacity to use bank credit to pay for much of the Green New Deal and not to use taxpayer money. I'm not that we're opposed to raising taxes in certain areas, especially on certain corporations, but there's a way to do it using credit. It's a really smart way. The state of Virginia is already in the banking business, by the way. We already make loans through different departments and do different types of financing. Our proposal is to consolidate a lot of that into a bank, which typically, bankers know how to make loans. They know how to run that kind of business. Politicians do not. So what we suggest is to create the Bank of Virginia to begin building out this loan portfolio in order to pay for the Green New Deal. And Frank, why don't you talk about equity in order to wrap it up? Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Sustainability. We use that word a lot when it comes to how do we make sure that the pieces that we are putting in place can continue to grow, can continue to build a foundation for us to be able to uplift others. When we talk about the Green New Deal and all these organizations that are part of this coalition, the work that we are doing in each of these communities, the access that we have to them and the understanding that we have of their needs, we know that there is a lack of trust in institutions. We know that we need to build something new that will empower them, that will give them the access that they need to be able to do the work that they need to have done. There are a number of policy issues that we need to support. There are a number of workforce development issues that we need to support. There are clean energy, clean air initiatives. There's wind and solar development taking place on the Eastern Shore. The work is already beginning, but it needs to have sustainability. And what the public banking model offers is sustainability. It offers access to the underserved and to the underbanked, to those who have had to wait in line or had to go jump through hoops to receive funding from the government, whether it's stimulus or otherwise. There's opportunities for us to create a new future that incorporates not just the local taxpayers who have been heavily hit by overdraft fees, all the things, banking fees that add up to and detract from their ability to live a full quality of life. There are so much work that we can do, but we have to have a way, a mechanism to be able to fund that and to provide the equity that we need, especially in the communities that we are trying to impact the most. We know that we need to put a new system in place. And again, this is not reinventing the wheel. North Dakota already has a model. We can do this in Virginia. And I think most importantly, the benefit of doing this in Virginia, the opportunities for clean air, clean energy, sustainable jobs, job training, all of the defossilization programs and projects, these are opportunities that we can take on as a coalition, as a state, and the public banking model is an opportunity for us to be able to finance that. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Francesca Costantino. One of the hats I wear is I'm policy liaison for the Virginia Association for Biological Farming. And I'm going to talk about a food and agriculture agenda for you tonight. But first, I think we should celebrate success. So last year, the Green New Deal, Virginia helped enact a local food and farm infrastructure grant program, which was just recently launched. And there's a link to the governor's press release on that on this slide. And then to build on that, this year in 2022, we can work in coalition with the Virginia Conservation Network on a policy agenda to address climate change, build a sustainable, equitable local food system, and revitalize farming communities in 3 parts: by investing small-scale meat processing, by promoting soil-based carbon capture and soil health through regenerative agriculture, and addressing equity in agriculture. And there is a link to a briefing paper with more details on what I'm going to say tonight, also on this slide. Next slide. So yes, Francesca, what does agriculture have to do with climate change and clean energy? Well, agriculture is 10% of US emissions. And as opposed to industrial agriculture, which is CAFOs and things like that, the concentrated animal feeding operations, regenerative pasture-based farming systems are really good at sequestering carbon and building soil health in the plants, in the pasture itself, in the soils, but currently they're limited by processing capacity. And we all remember from the COVID pandemic, we had the biggest supply chain breaks we had was in meat processing. And then another reason is grass-fed meat production provides a lucrative reason to conserve farmland that also benefits farming economy. So that's an economic development aspect as well. And then equity in agriculture, land is a source of opportunity and wealth that has been historically denied to people of color, and there's been land theft as well. I've been enjoying in the comments everybody mentioning the native lands that we all are sitting on and occupying. And ownership for farmers of color has really decreased. There's been systemic discrimination and unequal access to the public ag programs, especially USDA, and those lawsuits on discrimination have been in the news. Next slide. So there's some policy recommendations for climate smart agriculture. One thing that we can do is add climate smart conservation activities and farming systems as a specific category to be eligible for the Virginia Ag Cost Share Program. We can go after some new money for grants under the APHID program for small scale meat slaughter and processing capacity and meat cutter training, which is one of the main barriers. And also for technical assistance, new money for technical assistance to help farmers implement these climate smart ag practices. And we can map where is the current processing capacity, where is it needed, and what are the barriers. And then for farmers of color, we really don't know where they are, how many they are. I've asked some of our state agencies and people working in this area, they really don't know. So let's have a census, let's find out where they are, how many they are. Let's set aside funding in our current agriculture programs for farmers of color. Then let's have the General Assembly report on how are our agencies serving farmers of color. That's a bit of accountability there. And then there's one particular technical issue on heirs property. And heirs property is a situation where land is, there's no title and it's held among several owners in a family. And this tends to affect farmers of color, people of color more often, and farmers of color it complicates them farming the land. And so there's a specific fix that we need to do for land use valuation that is part of the proposal as well. So if people are interested, I appreciate your help. Any of the legislators listening, I appreciate your patronage, and I will put my contact information in and follow up with any desire to cooperate on this and any questions. Thank you.
Hi, evening. My name is Gary Harris, and I'm the chair for the Sustainable Cities and Transportation Group. And you know, it really boils down to ensuring that we have just planning, growth, and development for our cities, particularly our low-income communities, making sure that they're not impacted by the burdens of development. I mean, just imagine, I mean, this is happening not only in Virginia, but all over the country, where developers are targeting these middle-sized cities who need money, these small towns who need money, so they go in there with a large plant and such, offering them millions of dollars and such, and parking these facilities right beside low-income communities without doing any assessment, without doing any interventions, without having any dialogue, no town halls whatsoever and such. So we have got to be the voice for these communities and such to ensure just planning, growth, and development. So some of our strategies and solutions here, again, what we're doing is we're trying to make sure that our small neighborhoods, our communities are not impacted by development. So how are we going to do that? Well, finding strategies to engage the community. Example, the NAACP just came out with on yesterday their guidelines for communities engaging the development practices. It's a 100-page document and such, which is full of ideas to how communities can engage in these important processes like zoning and planning and development and such. Next, perform cumulative impact studies and such. You know, in some of our low-income communities, they already have disproportionate impacts. Already disparities exist from economics and health and income and crime. Those disparities exist. Then you layer on top of that those disparities, which could potentially come from development, nearby development, whether it be traffic or air pollution or increases in crime or some additional health impacts. We have got to study that to make sure that our communities stay healthy after during the planning of this development. So performing cumulative impact studies is one way of doing this. Another thing is to ensure that environmental justice is in the process of issuing licenses and permits. The last thing we want to do is give a license or to a permit to a development that is shown to have severe or could have severe impacts on a neighboring community. So these application processes, these license processes, these permits processes have to ask the question, does this development increase or has the potential to increase burdens on the potential community? And lastly here, we've got to educate our residents continuously on zoning, planning, and development. Got to get them engaged in those processes. Got to get them knowledgeable of how these processes can be impactful to their communities and why they've got to be engaged, why they've got to be knowledgeable, and why they've got to commit themselves to fully integrating in these processes, again, to prevent the development from having excessive burdens on their particular community. So again, you know, we're all about ensuring just planning, growth, and development as a way to ensure that our underserved communities don't bear the burdens of development.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Bakira Shabazz. I'm the chairperson for the Social Justice and Health Disparities Work Group, and I am going to be presenting today with my dear brother and friend, Richard Walker. The goal of the Social Justice and Health Disparities Work Group is to be able to create an oversight mechanism for all the things that the previous work groups talked about, right? What we see in governance today is a breakdown because there is a lack of true oversight and community involvement from government. And so when we sat down and thought about a lot of the things that keep people disfranchised, we wanted to know how also can we protect them. And we looked at the environmental aspect of it when we talk about particulate matter, traffic, coal plants and all of these things situated in one small community, and the health impacts that these community members are faced with coupled with a lack of insurance and a lack of quality healthcare, a lack of providers is what we're seeing right now during COVID. There are shortages in all of these fields. And so how do we protect these community members and the people who are doing these jobs? And we came up with these top priorities that I am going to turn it over to Richard Walker to discuss.
Thanks, Bakura. Richard Walker here. The social impact and health disparities that are currently exhibited in low-income communities and primarily communities of color are as a direct result of several areas. I heard my friend Sam Rasool talk about the intersectionality between environmental justice, racial injustice, employment injustice, economic injustice. All of those are social offenses that are primarily being targeted in communities of color. It is high time that a lot of the disparities and inequities that are being faced in these low-income communities be addressed, by the expansion of expungements, by reinstating parole, as Bakura read off the list, on exposing or bringing renewable energy information and outreach to low-income communities, removing the restriction for employment with relating to barrier crime. Individuals need an opportunity to be able to move forward and have a better quality of life. And it's our mission through everyone that's in this meeting tonight that we push the agenda that is needed in order to move forward, that everyone, the diversity of the Commonwealth of Virginia, be exhibited in all areas, in all sections of the quality of life within the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
Can we back because we forgot one off there, and that's the holistic medication and healthcare. And I want to make sure that we really talk about this, especially during this pandemic, because what I am seeing is that we are creating a second class of citizens, and what we don't want to do is go back to the day of slavery when we are mandating things on others, not understanding nor respecting their right to self-determination and their right to practice how they see fit for their bodies. And it is extremely important when we talk about true democracy and respecting one another. And I'm a humanitarian. I don't know about everybody else, but that we respect and understand people's reasonings for not following the pack, right? And so we need to make sure that there is in our expansion of Medicaid, that there is monies reserved for holistic medications and medical treatments. What we do know is a lot of people survived for a long time without westernized medicines. And they did that off of the land. And while we're talking about the Green New Deal, we gotta be mindful of what that truly means. That means living off, being able to be sustainable means living off of what the earth provides itself. And so all kinds of trees, plants that have always been medicine for years and natural cures. And we want to, especially to our indigenous folks, we want to make sure that we are respecting that and honoring people's culture and their right to decide. Now I'm done. I'm done, Lee.
Okay, thank you, Bakura. Hello, my name is Natalie Pian, and I am the Outreach and Education Working Group leader. I use the pronouns she, her, hers, and live in Leesburg, Virginia, in unceded Mahout territory. I'm a climate change activist because climate change is the greatest existential threat humanity has faced, and unless action is taken now at the immense scale required, nothing really else matters. Climate change has caused or exacerbated every justice issue oppressing populations in Virginia, the United States, and worldwide. As you can see from the slide, The Outreach and Education Working Group has two priorities. First, listening, and second, amplifying. We are unique from every other working group because we do not have our own policy priorities, but we support and promote other working groups' policies and priorities. Next slide, please. To accomplish our objectives, the Outreach and Education Working Group is largely organized into two committees. And you can see what each one does. The Tech Committee and the Events Committee. This working group is made up of talented and dedicated activists, each with special skills. We work together to develop and deliver programs and events. Next slide, please. We are very proud of our past work, starting with our very first event in September 2020, Voices of the Green New Deal, up to our last one, the April 25th, 2021 Green New Deal Virginia Internal Summit. Today's event, of course, is supported by the Outreach and Education Working Groups. Of course, all events have been virtual, and we look forward to the time when in-person events can be held again. So now you have a good sense of the Outreach and Education Working Group. And so I want to put a plug in for all the working groups. Every working group can use additional committed people like you guys to join and help us in this very important cause. So thank you very much.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I am so glad to join with you all here on our launch for the Green New Deal for the 2022 General Assembly session. I'm so blessed and honored to see so many wonderful faces and so many friends that I haven't seen in such a long, long time. And so I just wanted to come on today to talk about two big things that I am looking forward to carrying as we go into the 2022 General Assembly session. It's no secret that I stand here to be one of the biggest bullies, if you will, to Dominion Energy. And I am so excited that in 2022, I will be bringing back our public utility donation ban to make sure that we're holding our public utility companies accountable for the work that they're doing. Look, we just found out a couple of weeks ago that Dominion Energy owes roughly about $1.2 billion to ratepayers from overcharging. If you look at any other state, legislators taking money from public utility companies is considered a conflict of interest. If the General Assembly maintains and regulates the State Corporation Commission, and the State Corporation Commission regulates these public utility companies, it should be a conflict of interest in the Commonwealth of Virginia for those companies to donate to candidates and elected officials. So we will be bringing back that bill, and we are confident that we'll see victory this time. We also heard Stacey talk about the moratorium on fossil fuels. And so I just want to give a few pointers on why this is going to be important. A moratorium on fossil fuel infrastructure boosts renewable energy. Worker and community protections are needed, and we can accomplish that by putting in this moratorium. Ratepayers should not have to pay for unnecessary dirty energy projects. The climate crisis mandates a decrease, not an increase in fossil fuel use. And so we have to make sure that both of these projects are getting through the General Assembly. And so how can you help? You've heard some of the great work that these working groups are doing. We invite you to get involved. We also invite you to start having conversations. I want to share with you a sad thing. We did some polling that came out and showed that caring about clean energy, caring about the economy is a little bit down. And that's because we have to make sure we're sharing with, as I say, lottie-dottie and everybody, the importance of caring for the environment. We know that many of us who are advocates, who are doing the great work, who are fighting for activism, making sure that people understand the importance of protecting our planet, but we have to make sure that our friends around us, our family members, and the people we see every day understand the importance of it now. So as you get off this call today, I'm inviting you to make sure that your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, whoever is around you understands the importance of why we need a clean new deal, a green new deal right here in Virginia. So before I leave, I want to make sure you understand the importance of what we mean when we say a green new deal. Starting first with the word green. Green symbolizes life and prosperity. By including this bill and making sure that we get all of this passed, we are making sure that every Virginian has access to life and prosperity. It's something new. That means we're doing something fresh, something never done before. And it is a deal, meaning we are making an agreement and coming to a consensus that we're going to fight for a better life for everybody in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, I'm a pastor, so before I leave, I just want to give a little blessing over you that it will encourage you and equip you to keep fighting for the work that we need to be done. May God bless you with discomfort and easy answers, half-truths and superficial relationships so that you may live deep within your heart. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and the exploitation of people so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer pain, rejection, hunger, and war so that you may reach out your hand and comfort them and turn their pain into joy. And this is my favorite part. May God bless you with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in this world so that you can do what others claim cannot be done to bring justice and kindness to all the children and all the poor. This is the promise of a Green New Deal, and we are going to accomplish that in 2022. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Thank you for what you're doing. Don't give up. Don't get tired. We still got a little ways to go. Thank y'all. Love y'all.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful way to close off the evening. Before I let everybody go, Jolene just posted this in the chat. We did create a call to action. This is one where it takes like 2 minutes. You can call, tweet, and or text, call, tweet, and or email your Virginia representatives to support the New Virginia Economy Act. I will post this again in the chat. Please take action. It takes just a few minutes, and share this with your friends and family. As Delegate Cole said, we need to be talking about climate justice. We need to be talking about why it's important. And this is a great way to remind our community and to remind our legislators that we care about it. If you do have any questions, you're welcome to stay after the call, but it is 8 p.m. so I don't want to keep anybody. Thank you all for being here. We will be sending a follow-up email with the action and also information on how to join our working groups if you are interested. Thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great night.